Phil Schneider died in 1996, and many of you, like myself, may not know who he was. I, of course, did the research to present you this video, which is very hard to find. Many of you may have heard of the Dulce battle in Dulce, New Mexico, that took place underground with aliens, killing 60 Secret Service agents and wounding him, and he was the only one who he claimed survived.
Right. Give you a short overview of my background and structural engineer, both aerospace as well as military applications. That's about it for me. I worked in Vietnam, got torn pieces, shot, whatever. Been 5 years to recuperate, came back, patched me up, so to speak, and I did a lot of work overseas. But predominantly my field was underground mountain basing, also submarine basing, analyzing rock formations like grain structure. And this grain structure would yield a certain pattern, and that certain pattern could be used to analyze and chemically analyze and make special explosives that could be used to blast out large caverns underground, and even when there were caverns, you could still use shape charges to blast air and bog, although a lot of it was done by laser tunneling and drilling. I have a copy of a book here. I can't sell it, it's my only copy, but this fellow will corroborate with me. His name is Richard Stower, PhD. He can corroborate with me. Father was a German U-boat captain, responsible for sinking of 141 Allied boats. And got captured by the French, then turned over to Third Army, U.S., and then Third Army turned over to Naval Intelligence, based out of Dulce, Florida. And he later went to work also in Navy black projects. Maybe that's where I started, but it worked out that way. Anyway, he worked for naval operations. He worked on the infamous Philadelphia experiment. He was involved heavily with that. In fact, I have some of his original notes. These are some of the original notes that he can't go to school to learn them at Berkeley. And they were discussing things like element 104 and 105 way back in 1950. So obviously, that school was a little more accelerated than I think schools normally of that particular day, both in atomic physics and also in time variance. Anyway, my father continued to work in the U.S. Navy up until a couple of years before he died. He died 2 years ago, 1993, May of 93. But his main contribution, other than the Philadelphia experiment, was that he was one of the principal engineers of the first nuclear submarine, the USS Nautilus. And he worked with Hyman Rickover on that project. It's fullest from start to finish. He helped design the nuclear reactor. He helped design the metals, the containment vessel. He did all the machining of the uranium pellets that were used. He designed the hull predominantly and some of the graving docks, so he was a major contributor. Such today that even his ideas in air conditioning and filtration are still used today in all nuclear submarines in the United States. He's a pretty silent fellow over time. He told me that I shouldn't work in black projects in the desert regions. Of course, I call it sorry, I worked for a living. And in the early 60s, mid-60s, the construction work didn't pay really tremendously. And of course, I might give you a brief overview. The first underground bases were basically old coal mines, because the tunnels were already there. First missile base, as a matter of fact, I don't believe was in northern Montana. It was Atoll. the gold and silver mine. And the missiles are still in the old off-grid air shafts, deep underground military bases, all dumb bases. Right now, there are 131 of them. 129 are fully operational. Each one averages about 4.25 cubic miles hollowed out underground at an average depth of 5,000 feet down. Of course, some of them are shallower, some of them are deeper. They're strategically located. They were initially built to protect the Fresno of the United States and the government in general, federal government as well as the political government. So now the sheer number of the 129 bases with the basically the size of a medium-sized U.S. city is kind of unfathoming when you're dealing with maybe only 10,000 people in government that would be saved during a nuclear holocaust or war. So obviously these bases have other ulterior means. Some of them have already been used to in-house alien beings. Our government chooses not to let this out to the public for two reasons. The first main reason is that they don't want to panic the public. And their second main reason is that they don't want the public to know the alien agenda. My first part of my talk will be talking predominantly about the alien agenda, what it means for us on planet Earth. And it's going to get pretty graphic. The alien agenda basically is thusly. Aliens of 11 distinct races have been arriving here on Earth in mass since 1946, predominantly, and maybe earlier. Actually, probably the Bikini Island was one humongous underwater UFO base, or basically flying disc base, and that was known in the early 1940s. It was March of 1940. It was known that there was a number of this activity at that time. Japanese, before we got into war with them, they had a number of problems with flying balls of light, as they called them. They thought they were godlike. However, the gods don't come down and murder the populace. The alien agenda basically is to take over planet Earth by another race of beings, or races of beings. There was some other agenda other than World War II that was an immediate threat for people of this planet. In fact, General Douglas MacArthur was one time quoted as saying the very next war, that toward the close of World War II in 1945, he actually was quoted as saying, the next war we have will be from races from stars. The first UFOs seen and occupants seen in caves and in and around Houston consequences, New Mexico, were spotted by U.S. Army cavalry in 1909. The alien agenda means, as far as anything goes, as far as the government is concerned, it's the worst scenario they could ever face. Because it involves not only having to tell the public major lies and innuendo all the time, and keeping the public out of their face, and slowly it's breaking down. And I'm helping do that because I remember my forefather of this country, George Washington, one time saying, an uninformed populace is a populace devoted to slavery. So one must consider that if we become uninformed, then we're defeated already. Throughout almost half of the deep underground military bases in the United States, the 62 of them, of the 131, actually the 129, they're fully operational. The other two are under construction. The 62 of these bases are housing both the tall gray as well as the short gray alien, and all their craft, and of course our government, especially the U.S. Air Force and U.S. Navy predominantly, are trying to break this their technology down into usable technology for our own self. Case in point is this particular scenario. The F-117A, the B-2 bomber, maybe the Aurora, although that's not an accurate rendition, what it looks like. The airframes are predominantly made of alien metals beyond element 109, and metal composites, some of the skins of which are composed of rubber and carbon fiber, and the airframes are composed of complex carbon fibers mixed with elements such as marinite, which is element 123, which is extremely stable. I just kind of slapped this together. It's not quite as professionally done as these, but this was in Saudi Arabia. But at that time, they had 58 of these. This was half the fleet. And I'll give you a view of these aircraft. First of all, it's got a radar-absorbing material. That's the coal black coating. There's faceting on the edges. Faceting is a scalenohedral crystalline form. It's a crystalline form that predominantly does not occur on planet Earth, and is an alien, once again, alien technology that has been adapted to Earth type or terrestrial type technology. These ideas were first thought of in Soviet Russia, and later they were adapted. They couldn't use that particular kind of thing in the early 70s, and so one of their scientists, detective, came over here and started to work immediately with Lockheed. This fellow was also a pioneer and such. His name was Paul Benowitz. He was going to go public with the UFO and the alien agenda thing. He was a CIA pilot. He was also with the U.S. Air Force. Of course, they couldn't let that happen, so they stuffed him in the trunk of a car one night, took him off to a mental institution, and made him into a mental vegetable. He can't even write his own name today. If it wasn't for a brother who spent $1 million and a sister looking for him, he'd probably still been rotting away in some institution somewhere. What we've got here, like I mentioned, is basic alien technology that was adapted for us. Paul Benowitz, once again, he developed the shape of this aircraft, as well as how the bombs were to be dropped. He was also into other projects through Los Alamos. This is in Saudi Arabia. During the Gulf War, this particular aircraft had 4 large bombs underneath. They were called smart bombs, cruise missiles, and also rockets and machine gun fire, Vulcan cannon style, but even more advanced than that. I don't really know quite about that. There was one pilot that sat in here. He literally had to be crammed in, actually right up in here. They had to literally wedge him in there, and took a certain weight, size of individual. And all the Computronics was made by Mitsubishi Computronics and Heavy Electric Industries. The jets were both turbine as well as nuclear powered for extremely high flight. By the way, the smart bombs that were used in the Gulf War, 58 aircraft ran 3,706 sorties or missions. 100% of the bombs hit the target. 100% of the rockets hit the target. Shot up, completely destroyed the Iraqi air defense systems. It was a 100% system. Only one aircraft suffered one small hit, where a missile just barely missed it, and it just chipped out part of that, but the aircraft was able to make it home. was flying or repair the aircraft's back in service. But anyway, now there's some 179 of these built. They're building about one every other month. They're a $208 million aircraft. While this one here is about a $188 million aircraft and its problems. Although recently the F-117A Black Jet, as they're known as, originally housed at Nellis Air Force Base, Omaha Test Range, S4, Groom Lake, you name it. These aircraft employed a three-dimensional radar. Everybody else's radar was two-dimensional. The Black Jets employed a three-dimensional radar, which was far superior. And Computronics, too, also had a gray system to analyze bombing targets, and it was also the first aircraft where the pilot wore a helmet. It's called psychoenergetic range finding. It's a copy from the Russian technology, Soviet-Russian technology, where a pilot can think in his own language and arm his weapons and pick his target from his computer. It's still employed in a second and third generation. It's extremely accurate, not be fake. In other words, if another pilot decides to commit sabotage and jump in the cockpit, the plane won't even begin to run, let alone any of the missiles firing or anything else. So it's kind of a unique system. It's kind of like the signature gun. Of course, we've heard about those in different movies and whatnot. Now we have the Aurora, which is a trans-atmospheric vehicle. And the Aurora, there's 4 of them currently being tested. And plus, we also employed 29 prototypes of flying saucer and are successful in piloting those at up to 90,000 miles in the atmosphere without burning up. That's doing something, because when you go beyond Mach 3, actually beyond Mach 2.7, you ionize the air around it, and you cause the elements of the air to actually catch fire, and you need a force field around that system to exceed Mach 3 or Mach 4 without burning up, because you'll be as hot as a glowing meteorite coming in at about 30 or 40,000 degrees. Anyway, the Aurora, there's 4 of them flying. They fly day and night. They have 12 people as a crew. They can have a skeleton crew of as few as 6. They can basically leave Atoll Test Range at 7 o'clock in the morning, do a complete loop around Russia and China, and take all the pictures. They're predominantly a spy plane. They can take pictures, come back for lunch. That's how rapid it is. They attain that from basically zero. They're not only this aircraft, and this aircraft are anti-lifting bodies. They are not conventional winged aircraft. A flying saucer theoretically is a circular wing. These are not. These are anti-lifting bodies. In other words, it takes an incredible amount of speed before they're able to take off. This is all part of the one world government type system. I try to stay away from the political end, but it's kind of like the one world government system. Take over the planet, and hopefully we don't have to tell the people of the planet what the alien agenda is. The alien agenda is what probably the aliens never meant that we were going to alter the bargain, but the aliens were the ones back in 1954 who cut a treaty with us saying that, well, we'll give you a list of the people that we implant and the cattle we mutilate, and we'll give you a reason why and everything. Of course, that never happened. They kept altering the bargain until finally, in 1979 in Dulce, New Mexico, I was involved in that operation. We had gone down there to build an auxiliary base on the southern end of Dulce, New Mexico, already existing base on Archuleta Mesa. And lo and behold, when we drilled down, we found aliens were already in there and have been in there for some time. I can tell you, when you're standing, say, as I am here, to where this gentleman is over here, and that's an alien gray who's pretty much 7 feet tall and the meanest looking bastard you ever saw, and not looking like a human being, you kind of get petrified. And as an engineer, of course, I didn't carry a regular big 45 or anything belt, because it would get in the way. I carried tools and other kinds of things with my belt, and I also carried a small pistol, Walther BBK, with a 9-shot clip, 380. And I emptied one clip into 2 of these alien critters, as they call them, and yes, they are mortal. But I got also, as soon as that happened, as I was reloading, I never got the clip into the gun. They hit me in the chest with some kind of particle beam weapon that gave me a very high dose of nuclear radiation, similar to cobalt radiation, but in flight, even more nasty. And I was in isolation afterwards for 50 some odd days, 57 days all total. And it took another couple of years to recuperate. Once again, I was in my body was in a traumatic situation. I've got the scars to prove it. It's pretty gross, and I don't want to. There are ladies. There's a ladies present here. So let's not raise the shirt here, but they're there. And basically, in talking about alien agenda, we have to also be talking about what occurred over here. This is the Bikini Atoll test. Now here we have an actual extremely large, in quote, mothership right at the point of neutron flash cloud. That's like 2 or 3 10,000ths of a second after the initial blast. And of course, the date of this is 12 July 1946. As we all remember, if we've read our history on UFOs, that how they started, it wasn't really known. As a matter of fact, after Roswell, we remember that there was a Senate hearing and House of Representatives hearing, a closed door session hearing, but a little bit leaked out in the public, and it stated that the government knew nothing about UFOs prior to that time. And here we have these streaks, and these are the classic discs that have all been pictured like this. Kind of look like the Top Hat series, as I call it. Have all been confirmed as being just that. They're a Type 3A flying disc. And we have these small white dots. White dots. By the way, these guys here are receding from the ocean, taking the trajectory. They're getting out of there in the worst way. They'll probably not make it because of the radiation factor. But they're exceeding at speeds in excess of 13,000 miles an hour, and the white dots are exceeding 30,000 miles an hour as they're leaving. And they have actually changed the color. They've almost gone out of scope, and you're seeing a photograph, very rapid photograph of a blurred image. Some of the photographs go from a black splash or dash to this white dot system, and then they go out of scope of what we call visual reality. And that takes some tremendous speed to do that. This particular overview shot, which is an extremely rare photograph of an atomic blast, as far as I know, this is the only one ever shown to the public. There are small dots and dashes, basically, as I'd say, these are all garbage scouts and ships and whatnot that they put harm's way to see what the reaction would be of an atomic blast. And I'm sure the atomic testing was conducted predominantly in case we had to be prepared in using atomic warfare to fight alien influence. And they needed cover stories, so this was the Russians in the Cold War and everything, so it's a perfect cover story. Although it later became more than a cover story, as we all know. These particular photographs also show small dots and dashes, as I would say. and all of them have been confirmed. Now, this black system here in the atomic cloud is actually time being ripped apart. Of course, the atmosphere and the clouds and everything, and then time being warped by the initial blast itself. And that's by neutrinos going through and ionizing space, ionizing the atmosphere and whatnot, but exceeding the speed of light. So you put this antimatter background and you get total blackness. We've been right here also in this picture in the bombing of Hiroshima, Nagasaki. This is the Nagasaki. Down at the bottom, we see the characteristic human face, which is typical of all A-bomb explosions over populated areas. You will always find a human face at the bottom of the mushroom bottom. Now, nobody really knows if this is just by coincidence or the makeup of the cloud or whatever. But these little dots and dashes, and these white dots and dashes, are receding at better than 30,000 miles per hour. And there are UFOs leaving the scene. Japan was infested with them. There maybe counted better part of 2 million of them toward the closing end of World War II. Once again, it's all part of an alien attack of planet Earth. Been going on steadily since World War II era. Still going on, only now it's subverted into large groups of human beings being actually abducted and implanted. And that's according to the Roper report, which is part of the Remington Rand Corporation, who did the reporting, the Bigelow Holding Company. Now they're in a third generation report, and of that third generation report that we just sent out to all the clinical psychologists in the United States, 110,000 of them, stated that basically women are being raped by aliens. And I know as fantastic as that sounds, it's backed up by John Mack, Harold Wire. Once again, the alien agenda is to disturb the natural progress of the human race and to alien agenda beings. And of course, there's another thing to mention: any outer space alien, regardless of who they are, how benevolent or how evil they are, they're a biological hazard because we have no defense against their germs. Absolutely none. In fact, they can kill us just by being around. I developed something like jungle rot. I still got it on my feet and on my back, and because of the Dulce, New Mexico thing, I get free hospitalization for the rest of my life. In fact, I'm a good guinea pig, I guess. But theoretically, that's being around inside that cave at that particular time. So that's the first time I've told any of you people that, but that's basically what it's all about. Stick to another subject. It's called Strategic Defense Initiative. Of course, this could very easily be, as mentioned by my late friend Ron Lee Rummel, who was murdered incidentally by the 3 people inspired to kill him. One person did the killing. One was a NSA officer, and one was a both backbone firearms officer. Both are in custody as we speak. The third gentleman is fighting extradition. He's a Czechoslovakian, most likely able to successfully fight extradition because they don't follow U.S. law very well. And the second part of my talk will be aliens and the alien agenda. I've already touched on that. Old alien bases. And like I said, Bikini Island, according to what was studied after the A-bomb blast, some of the caves that were infested with outplaced artifacts dealing with UFOs and other kinds of paraphernalia had rock forming around them, so they had been basically an alien junkyard in shallow seas for probably the better part of 10,000 years. So they'd been around that you might call an old alien base. Dulce, New Mexico is another old alien base, or kind of a botryoidal or clear agate had formed over some of the parts laying on the floor of the existing base. And it takes an extremely long period of time geologically speaking, for this to form. The aliens have probably been here the better part of at least 500,000 and maybe as much as several million years, although I have artifacts here which show artifacts like a small turbine-looking device sitting in 220 million year old fossil coral. And I also have alien metals which are present in other kinds of rock formations, including a piece of petrified wood where an insect had basically burrowed a hole around one of its limbs, and then something had literally, like a laser, had literally sliced through it, but the cambium or the actual layers of the wood had bent as the beam burnt its way through it. Got that in here too, as well as an original piece of instantly petrified, looks like a garlic root that was found in and around Area 51. And this particular piece of garlic type plant was instantly petrified, contains the same exact chemical structure of the quartz crystal. The quartz crystal only grows in a certain left-handed crystal pattern, and that same pattern is extant on fossil, instantly petrified or fossilized plant life of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's identical, chemically identical. Anyway, the next part of this, second part of the talk, are treaties. Basically, there were 4 distinct treaties made through the United States government from the alien encounter. First one was in 1944. Second one was 1954. Third one was 1962. Fourth one was 1979. I'll go backwards. The 1979 treaty was a total violation of, incidentally, in Dulce, New Mexico, where I got badly hurt. 66 Secret Service and Delta Force people lost their lives, 22 of which were on loan from other countries, Israel, Germany, Norway, South Africa, if I remember. I was the only geological engineer down there to analyze the situation. The government only basically lied to us. They kind of said that alien presence might be there, but they didn't tell us that they knew that there was an alien base and that they'd already attempted to make contact. And of course, that's disturbing indeed. That a couple of the engineers who managed to survive with the project under duress. Another part of the talk are the intelligence community. The Nazi group, the World War II Nazi or Hitlerian group, the Fatherland Intelligence Agency, trained our CIA, our OSS, which became our CIA, and other intelligence communities predominantly, and are still being employed today as we, in quote, the federal government today trains Bosnian troops on American soil, and from what I understand, that's totally illegal. That's another topic. The third part of the talk is the types of aliens. The large grave that two large graves that I shot and killed. I can't tell you how ugly they were, and I can never tell you how graphic the stench was. But in the cave, there were large cauldrons or tanks. They kind of looked like a big oval cattle feeding tank, but they weren't. They were special, looked like stainless steel or metallic tank. They were filled with alien and human body parts, and generally glands, and what looked like some kind of blood. I've always been taught that blood after a few minutes starts to congeal, but this was one of these vessels that in the melee had tipped over, and all this bloody liquid had spilled out. It was a mess, and it was definitely not coagulated. how they did this is anybody's guess. So if we remember anything about cattle mutilations, we might also think that basically the blood in the cattle are totally drained out. There's no blood around in quote the murder scene of the case. I will tell you right now, I'm breaking major federal law. I'm breaking my entire security oath system. Security oath. In fact, here's a copy of my 1985 security clearance. You might zoom in on that if you care to. And of course, it's got a picture of me. It's got Department of the Air Force. Got a control number here. It's got a digital control number and name here. It's got a UPC stripe here. It's got a level L. That was only issued to people that worked at Room Lake and area S4. And R, restricted zone R4808E. This is a computer chip camera in the card itself. You didn't wear the card like you wore another security card. This one wasn't worn. This was used to get you into the main gate. I'm breaking all my security oaths by coming out in the open and talking about this. When I initially was told these underground bases were for security in case of nuclear attack in the United States, and it was a total lie. When I found out that the aliens were actually entrenched in half of these bases, and these bases, by the way, cost a minimum of $17 billion a piece. Black budget garners $508 billion a year, $1.023 trillion every 2 years. That's 2-year-old information. It's probably more like 1.3 trillion now, which is about 1/4 of the gross national product of the United States. It's no wonder why our economy is kind of up and down here and there. Once again, you might ask, well, how in the heck? We've only been told, we the public have only been told there's a total defense budget of $447 billion. So how many meant to be $500 billion going on behind the scenes? First of all, black budget means hidden budget. Hidden budget is totally hidden from congressional view and oversight, cannot be audited by the U.S. Treasury system at all. It is a separate, independent taxing body entity within the federal government structure, which, by the way, is illegal. Totally illegal. It's primarily financed by drug operations by the CIA and the NSA and the Drug Enforcement Administration, and now the FBI is implicated also. Recently, there was an FBI man that came out of the cold, so to speak, and told all, only to find himself murdered, and he took a vacation in England. He got himself murdered. That was in the paper about 3 years. Any 9 attempts on my life have been taken, all since the 1st of January of this year. Well, I've been shot at and run off the road. 3 times I've been run off the road, one of which is I'm a very good driver. I used to race cars, but somewhat of a hobby type living. I used to race everything from Formula 1 on down, motorcycles and stuff like that with those kids. So I was kind of on the edge all of it. So I became a very good driver and a very defensive driver. And so if somebody's trying to run me off the road, like before my Vegas talk, I dropped a friend of mine off at 29 Palms area and saw another friend in the Marine Corps hospital who was dying of cancer. On the way out of there, so you have to skirt around a whole mountain range. You just take the easiest way and straight line out, to be honest. And it doesn't work that way. You have to skirt around these mountains. And then they sped up to try to squeeze me in this way, and then finally I just split right in the middle of the road, and the road was wide enough for basically one-way traffic. And one of them rolled over, and kept going down for about 300 or 400 feet down a very steep ravine. The other one was a shallow ravine about 10 feet deep. And I just kind of peered over, got my, hugged my seatbelt, peered over, and there was a big fire starting on down there. I could hear people screaming, but I'm sorry, it's their deal. I just kept on going. That was one way. Recently, I got shot at when I was with a retired FBI agent. We were going to go to a Patriot talk show down near Salem, Oregon. And I got shot here. It's what's called the CIA cocktail. I don't have normal ribs after Dulce, New Mexico fiasco, where my ribs were burnt, cauterized, my fingers are burnt off of me, etc. I have a plastic plate in here, an island plate that have bumps on, looks like ribs and everything. So those bullets just kind of just lodged in that stick, 5-inch thick plastic, a movable plastic thing in the inside, and it was dug out. And once again, here I am recuperating from another problem, and all because I'm trying to bring the American public. And I love my country more than my life. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this ridiculous route of things by coming clean. But I feel I have to because the American public was not only been lied to. But when I was asked to, by the intelligence community within the Air Force to continue my operations in a black budget word, Delphi word. What would I think if they said that I would be betraying the American public? I'd tell them to go fly it, go to Devon or whatever. Because I won't be a party to that. And I walked out of the room, and somebody tried to tell me to come back. It was out of my face, fell over here on the ground. He would get out of my face and went on the ground. And I walked away, an automated decision. And stick by it. That's why I'm here talking. I also want to get a little political sided here, although I don't like to. Right now we have an out of touch, runaway federal government structure that really doesn't care about the way you and I feel. They manipulate evidences of crimes and several instances, both in Waco and other. The Waco hearings should have been a wake-up call to most who are watching, even if they'd only watched a piece of it. This once again proves the federal government structure was just running away with everybody's freedom, and they run roughshod over. They've actually become kings and queens over us, and our forefathers told us exactly what would happen if we took a certain stand, if we made laws to legislate God out of our system, would have a similar problem. If we made laws or had too many people making the laws within our government structure, we would have a similar problem that we're facing today. We're facing a form of tyranny and totalitarianism. Incidentally, you might want to throw a few statistics by you. And it's quite provable in a number of talks given recently, both by the United Nations and others. The United Nations is entrenched in our country. They're training our troops. So our troops are being trained by the United Nations in the United States. And I think that's kind of an oddball system. Russian troops are being trained on basically Montana and North Dakota and the northern Territories, Washington, upstate Washington, etc. There's a stockpiling of Russian tanks and hardware by the U.S. Army for what purpose? Also, we have purchased at the cost of some $38 billion all the Russian nerve gas. Nerve gases are their nerve gas is extremely long shelf life. We're destroying our own nerve gas, which has a relatively short shelf life of 15 years. The Russian variety is extremely deadly. And also, I'll tell you something else about that. The Russian nerve gas is composed primarily of glandular secretions And they even mentioned, and, as they were down in the flying saucers within their own country, they found a way of making chemical weapons from some of the alien cadavers, that kind of thing like that. So from some of it, some of the glandular excretions. So once again, biological weapons against the people of the United States. There have been other talks given by other people allergic to this, including Ted Gunderson, was an ex-FBI agent, who got tired of the federal government tromping on him. And another ex-astronaut by the name of James Roden, not the Roden of Alternate 3 book fame, but just a number of key government people have started coming out slowly, but unfortunately it's at a snail's pace. I'm the only one that ever worked and has a level 3 security clearance that came out from the Colt, so to speak, and I'm going to let everything open to be or any public. Something like this was tried in Britain and in France for some shit. Incidentally, I can't charge with espionage theoretically because, according to our, including one person, they said, "Oh, this place doesn't exist." Now it's on an aerial map, different. If it doesn't exist, then I'm just full of you know what, hype and hooey, so to speak, and I'm just crazy or something like that. So be it. And if it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. How can I be charged with a crime on something that doesn't exist? The other thing is that if you're guilty of espionage, you would have to sell for dollars or cents or some form of monetary gain the information that you impart. And I'm not doing that in communication form. Talk, lecture, it's counted. It's actual exchange of money by another individual for the information or the proscribed information. Well, I'm going to be getting out a few alien artifacts here. I'll let you take a look, and you're welcome to kind of stretch your waist a little bit and feet. You're also so there's the Stephen. I'm about to look at very carefully, and I'll leave my hand lens out for you to take a peek. By the way, when you use this hand lens, it's going to get right up on the object like this. You'll see a line going straight through with the wood layers of the cambium coming this way as whatever went through it, mark through it. Very interesting. And there's another out of flames artifact of boom parts, so to speak. It's another fossil. This is at one time a cave mushroom, a fossil plant. Something cut it absolutely perfectly, like a laser, cut right through the thing, and part of it slid off, and it later got perfectly petrified, similarly to the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bomb test with a similar signature. Here's this instantly petrified garlic plant. Incidentally, this is 65 to 100 million years old. This is 105 to 130 million years old. And this is roughly 30 million years old. It has the exact chemical makeup and structure of quartz crystals formed on its surface and on the internal structure of the plant itself, which the top part, of course, the sprout is all broken off. This is sprout underneath it. The quartz crystals are identical to the material found at Hiroshima and Nagasaki out there at the spot. Here's a bottle of the RAM coating of black jets. Of course, when they come in after their mission, they're glowing red hot, and they drip this particular material off on this inbuilt tarmac. This isn't tar, it's a special cement. And it just drips. Maybe some of these aircraft You might see drip spots like here and here and there and different places here. So this is the material. It's like lava drops off of it. This is element 123, which is also in topoline. Topoline and element 123, they're very much heavier than uranium. They're island of stability elements. They're, by the way, these pieces of metal I've purchased with my own money when I worked for the government, as they were test samples. They never bothered to pick them back up, nor did they pay me back for them, so they're my property. But it's a golden orange metal. The pure metal is pure gold and orange, and like lead, you can just carve it. It's a very peculiar metal indeed. Totally stable, cannot be isotoped. Element 123 with an atomic weight of about 320, and here it is. It's almost twice the weight of uranium. This periodic chart was developed by a number of scientists anonymously, don't want their name revealed. Of course, all we're familiar with is element 103. That's been around for a long time. And a couple of these are made in Russia. These that don't have any name, they're very short-lived indeed. Element 109 to 110 also. But after, from 111 to 140, these are all elements that were garnered off of alien attack vehicles or alien spaceships or flying saucers when they were taken apart. You know, topoline is here, element 117, and element 123 is mirinite. It's a combination of both those for an extremely hard substance capable of standing temperatures in excess of 9,500 degrees Fahrenheit to as much as 14,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Here's a tabular scaleno hydrocrystalline form, 4 times the hardness of a diamond, 4 times the tensile strength, capable of withstanding temperatures in excess of 45,000 degrees Fahrenheit before chemical breakdown. It is used in the window the small slit windows. They're in the underbelly and the blackened out windows of the actual cockpit, although most of these pilots fly blind. They don't ever see anything from the ground. So that's kind of it. That's also an alien material, and it is element, if I remember right, it's element 113. When I was 14 years old, I was with my father, who was talking to us, Sir Johnny Rawlins. It's Johnny H. Rawlins, who was a British naval sea lord, and he had collected some of the trash retrieval objects of the infamous Roswell crash, and these are actually little bits of the skin that have, and of course, you remember the skin, you couldn't bend it or cut it or anything. The way they did this, of course, they dropped liquid nitrogen on it, and they used a hammer technique of shattering it, and it became brittle. But once again, it's composed of nothing but elements, which are, by the way, we're not able to understand where this particular elements come from in the skin. It's the thickness of the sheets of paper you're writing on, and that's all it's needed to be meteor-proof and missile-proof and everything else. And these things have crashed, of course, and they've also been shot down by luck. Not by skill. And I'll let you look at that, but you can handle these other things, but don't handle this. Here's a Nazi saucer. That was done by Vladimir Chezersky, who was a Russian space engineer of some fame. Here's the new periodic chart of the elements. Let me go ahead and look through it. Incidentally, here is a unique piece of hardware too. It's an ordinary gold watch. The only thing unique about this particular gold watch is that it's a Waltham, but on the back, on the reverse, it's made in Montauk, New York. Just happened to be used by my dad in the Philadelphia experiment. And they happen to be keeping rather accurate time. Anyway, I need a seat.
Hope you guys enjoyed that. One thing I want to point out that's probably the most disturbing in this entire incident is the fact that Phil was found dead in his apartment. And it wasn't just that he was found dead. It was that he was found dead with his catheter strangling. You guys can look this up for yourselves. And incidentally, before that even occurred, Phil, while giving a lecture, also showed the audience that he had been shot weeks prior. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Or maybe what he showed in this video is probably the most concrete evidence we've ever seen of real men materials.